a countdown.
T-2 and holding.
Lot of hold up.
I'd like to welcome you to the February 12th, 2015 regularly scheduled Planning Commission. If you would, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the minutes of the last meeting, January 15th.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes of January 15, 2015.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes.
Second.
Mr. Delezline, second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda are citizen comments. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to come forward and make a statement regarding things that are not on today's agenda? These are general comments, not related to the business that we're going to be handling. Is there anybody in the audience? Seeing nobody, we're going to move to the next item. Madam Clerk, could you please establish the rules of the hearing?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is entitled to 15 minutes for presentation and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Individuals may speak for 3 minutes, and anyone representing a group or organization or 5 or more members may speak for 10 minutes. If you represent a group, please state the group you represent and provide written authority to speak on behalf of the group. When you step to the podium, please state your name and whether or not you've been sworn. At this time, anyone wishing to address the Planning Commission, will you please stand while I administer the oath? Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which you're about to present to this board will be truthful and accurate? I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer, are there any revisions to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, there are none today.
Very good. Ms. Schenk, is there any items from the County Attorney's Office?
None, sir.
Very good, thank you. Today we have 3 items on consent. Actually, I'm sorry, there's 5 items on consent, but we're going to pull one of the items. A couple of commissioners have requested that we pull item number 6. So we're gonna move that to the regular agenda and have a presentation, a brief presentation. So for the consent items, Mr. Meyer, could you read item number 2, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Item number 2 is ordinance 14-45, Robinson Gateway DRI 29. And this is to be continued to March 12th, 2015.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to make a statement or comment regarding item number 2? Seeing no one, I'm going to move to item number 3, Mr.
Mr. Chair, item number 3 is a companion item. It is PDMU-13-01 Robinson Gateway, and that's also to be continued to March 12th, 2015.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak to item number 3? Seeing nobody, item number 4, Mr. Meyer.
Mr. Chair, item number 4 is PDR-14-24 This is Heron Creek Phase 2, and this is approving a preliminary site plan for 45 single-family attached lots on approximately 17.705 acres located at 7600 36th Avenue East, Palmetto, Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Is there anybody wishing to come forward on item number 4, Heron Creek? Anybody in the audience? Seeing no one, Mr. Meyer, item number 5.
Item number 5, Mr. Chair, is PDC-14-23 This is University Parkway Shoot Straight. It's a rezone of approximately 9.78 acres at 2335 University Parkway, Sarasota, Florida, from PDR Plan Development Residential to PDC Plan Development Commercial zoning district. Approve a preliminary site plan for a medium-intensity recreational facility, which is an indoor shooting range, and a neighborhood retail business.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Mr. Camp, you signed up to speak on item number 5. If you would, please come up to the...
I'm going to retract that request.
You retract?
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to item number 5? If you would, please come up to the podium. Seeing no one? That concludes the items on consent. Again, item number 6 is pulled, so I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I move
Horgan.
approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Ms. Lakoyak, second. Thank you very much. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Consent passes unanimously. All right. We're going to move to the regular agenda, which consists of a single item. It's the Aldi Bradenton quasi-judicial item, the rezone. Mr. Meyer, if you would, please read into the record.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. This item is PDC-14-27 This is Aldi Bradenton. It is a rezone of approximately 3.87 acres located on the northeast corner of 53rd Avenue East, which is SR 70, and 45th Street East at 4525 53rd Avenue East, Bradenton. It's a rezone from GC General Commercial, that's 1.41 acres, and A1 Suburban Agricultural, 1.18 acres, and PRM, which is Professional Medium, 1.2 acres, to the PDC Plan Development Commercial Zoning District, and approve a preliminary site plan for 17,018 square feet of retail use area, which will be a grocery store Aldi. And that's the item, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. This item was originally on consent. It was requested by 2 of the commissioners that it be pulled. Mr. Rode, do you have specific items that you, or questions you had on this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Related to the project itself, I'm familiar with this area, or basically this intersection, and I know every time something gets approved, traffic becomes an issue, so to speak, whether it's real or thought to be real. And I now know on this corner now that there are 2 developments. Now there's a proposal for 3, and I'm sure the 4th will follow. And I know 3 times during the day that this is busy intersection. And I would like to specifically see, even though it was shown, it was hard to realize what traffic improvements are going to be made to this area to alleviate the 3rd corner of 4 adding to this traffic area.
Okay. And Mr. Horgan, you also had a concern?
Yes, and I must admit that I have been to the site as recently as this morning. And my concerns were both the traffic and the environmental concerns. There's a major creek that sort of runs along the back edge of this, and then there's there's a few large trees on the site, so thought I'd have.
Was the purpose of your visit today related to the hearing today?
Yes, it was to have a look at it and understand what it was that I was going to be asked to vote on.
Okay, thank you. Staff, could you please make a presentation, and then keeping in mind the concerns stated by the commissioners, if you could, please.
Good morning, Rosina Leider by the staff. I would like Mr. Clark Davis address the comments related to traffic, and after that, environmental planning.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. For the record, Clark Davis, Transportation Planning Manager, and I have been sworn. The project, Aldi, is located at the intersection of State Road 70 and what's 45th Street on the north side and Lockwood Ridge Road on the south side. And as you noted, it is a busy intersection today during the peak hours. The way the concurrency rules are set up now is that new development that comes in cannot be held responsible for solving existing transportation problems or those created by approved but not yet constructed development. The traffic analysis was conducted with this in mind and found that due to background traffic, that is the existing traffic and the reserved trips from other approved projects, there are several turn lanes needed at 45th/Lockwood Ridge Road and State Road 70, and a turn lane at the intersection of State Road 70 and Natalie Way, just to the east of there. There were no improvements concurrency related that were found necessary for the project itself, however, and they have been working with county, though, to provide an access to the project that functions well with the intersection just north of the intersection, so that's their access location along 45th north of the intersection. The county has programmed improvements to 45th. We'll be widening it to 4 lanes in the coming year or so, and we're looking for an opportunity to make further improvements to the south leg of the intersection to help with what, if you do know the area in the peak hour, we've got a lot of backup for the northbound right turn lanes. You know, going north on Lockwood to turn right to go out to the interstate or that direction on 70. So it's not programmed yet, but it is another improvement we're trying to make to help address those background issues at the intersection. That's pretty much what the study showed and what I know about our programmed improvements in the area. If there are other questions, I'll try and help.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. I do have a question. There appears to be an existing median separator, traffic separator on 45th. Is that going to be extended to the north past the intersection, driveway?
I do not know the geometric design of the 4-lane widening project. I'll ask Mr. Gerstenberger if he.
The reason I ask it indicates that it's a right turn only, but it looks like it might be possible to do a left turn with the current configuration of the traffic separator.
The current, I think it's 4-foot wide concrete separator that's there, does allow for lefts in and lefts out for the gas station that's in the northwest corner of that intersection. When it's reconstructed, my expectation would be that divider would be extended back and limit the turns to right in, right out. And Mr. Gerstenberger has pulled up a plan sheet from the design for that project, and that appears to be the case. So they would be limited to right in, right out. That access just south of Gap Creek there.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Thank you. Are there any questions regarding?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rhodes.
Do we have any, I know in the report that we received, it listed all kinds of the improvements, right turn, left turn, extension. Do we have any diagrams to show what these are going to be, or where the turns are going to be on 45th related to Aldi? Because I know when and I can't think of the name of the complex, but I know it's the CVS and the Publix complex on the opposite corner. When that was being brought to us, and then before the Board of County Commissioners, we had requested at that time that there would be 2 entryways turning left into the complex to alleviate traffic. And that would be nice if we could do it on the Aldi complex also. But it's hard for me to see from what we have exactly the traffic flow for this development? Because it's already backed up on 45th when you're coming south to make a turn going east.
For, Mr. Rhodes, for clarification, are your questions or comments related to the county's proposed improvements?
Well, to me, when I was reading this, I thought there was going to be some improvements already made related to the Aldi. And I'm trying to see what improvements are going to be related now, or is just Aldi going to go in and sometime in the future? Because it's not going to be good news for the people in the area.
Thank you.
None of the off-site improvements, the intersection improvements that are listed in the report will be completed by Aldi. The only improvements made by Aldi will be at their access locations.
And their access location is off of 70 and then also 45th, correct?
That's correct.
But on 45th, is there going to be one or two entrances into their development?
One entrance.
One entrance if you're, okay.
Located as far north as they can place it with, relative to the Gap Creek Bridge there.
Right, because
And
traffic backs up there quite often when you're coming south on 45th Street and you want to turn east on 70. So I'm worried that if there's traffic trying to get into Aldi, it's just going to back up traffic completely on 45th Street.
And we probably don't have all the diagrams we need to show it, but when we complete the 45th Street project, there'll be,
Is there a time frame for that? Or is it just, yeah?
I don't have the exact time frame, but I know it's under design now, and so it should be within a year or two that it would be completed. So there may be some time where Aldi's in place prior to our completion of our construction, depending on, how they move forward from today, or from if they get approval when they move forward. But when at the end, there should be a 4-lane section on 45th Street. So it's just a 2-lane road with a very short left turn lane there today.
Right.
And they'll put in a concrete separator and make that left turn lane much longer, so they'll only be able to turn right in and right out. So there will not be southbound left turns at the Aldi entrance. And so that should address the concern that you're expressing, I believe.
Okay. Just so the developer, and that's the entrance into Aldi on 45th, the further north it could go, the better for that whole intersection.
And there was a lot of coordination with environmental staff and engineering to make sure we got it as close as we could to Gap Creek without causing problems with the creek itself and the bridge and everything else. So I'm not sure we could move it any farther north without moving the creek at this point, but
All right.
that's where we are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Horgan, I believe you had some.
Yeah, I have a question with the entrance that's on State Road 70. Because of my living in the general area, I'm well aware of what happens up at Lowe's and so on and so forth. And how do we stop people from coming out of Aldi and making a diagonal dash across oncoming traffic on State Road 70 to make a left-hand turn and make a U-turn on 70?
Well,
Can we move that, can that entrance be moved further to the west?
Well, there's a local road to the west, and so the state will be balancing a couple of things, how the right-in, right-out interacts with the adjacent signalized intersection at 45th and 70, and its interaction with the local road just to the east of there. They want to maintain access spacing along that frontage. It would have been a concern of theirs. It is a state road, and so it's governed by the state. The applicant's engineer, I believe I saw him earlier, maybe here to help address what their conversation was with the state about their access location and how it was designed.
Because someone who deals with those kinds of turns on a regular basis on that road, it's seriously dangerous situation where someone will, unless you make it so inconvenient for them to do it, they will do it.
Right, and then some of them will still do it even then, but I understand it's an issue.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. You mentioned the fact that State Road 70 is a state road. For clarification, the access points off of State Road 70 are dictated by DOT, and the access points off of 45th are county-related issues.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Are there any other questions of staff? Okay, seeing none. We've already had one ex parte disclosure. Are there any other disclosures, ex parte disclosures? Okay, thank you very much. Now, we would like to have the applicant make a presentation, and if you would, please address the items that we've discussed with staff and amongst the commission. That would be very helpful for the decision.
Good morning.
Good morning. And please state your name and that you were sworn. Thank you.
I will. My name is Scott Standard. I am the owner of Commercial Site Solutions, the engineering firm on behalf of Aldi Stores. With me here today, if you have any questions directed to Aldi themselves, is Emily, who's the representative of Aldi, in case you have operational concerns about how the store operates. Also with me is Mike Yates, the traffic consultant, and he's going to help me address some of these concerns that you guys have as far as driveway questions. And Tim Larson from Commercial Site Solutions as well, and he's the landscape architect as we get into talking about trees and environmental things.
And you've been sworn?
And I have been sworn.
Thank you very much.
I have a couple of handouts I'd like to give to you guys if you want them. It'll show you, they're small, they won't take up much room, but it'll show you the site plan, it'll show you the building elevations. You can kind of see what we're proposing if you'd like to see those.
Yes, we also have an overhead projector available, so
Okay.
Please also put one there so
Yep.
the audience can see.
Oh. You can take those, and then I'll keep one of those, and you can take the rest of those. The details of the project itself, I'll give you as much detail as you like, or as little as you like. It's really up to you guys. Rosina did a pretty good job already telling you what it is. 17,018 square foot grocery store, limited grocery store. It's not like a Publix or anything. It's set up a little bit different in that there's a smaller selection, but and a lower store size, which allows them to keep the prices down. And that's kind of the niche that they find themselves in and have done very well with. Property, as you noticed, is already zoned commercial. Part of it is. This was worked through staff to be a PD zoning, which gives us a little more flexibility, gives you guys a little bit more flexibility in the development of the site plan. Specific to the site plan itself and the entrance drives, as you noted, we have one proposed driveway onto State Route 70. Again, that is that's an FDOT road. I would note there's actually 3 driveway openings there today. And when we went and met with the DOT, it was their concern that there not be 3. So we have agreed to close 2. We've kept 1 to limit the amount of traffic going in and out and kind of keep it from being what is a free-for-all, I guess it could be potentially down the road if there were 3. The location of the one on State Road 70 is actually, as was noted, dictated by the DOT. And in answer to the question of could we move it further west, we actually can't. You're not allowed to put a driveway connection into the right-in, right-out, or excuse me, the right-hand turn lane, nor could we put it into the taper. So we moved it back as far east as we could to avoid that right-hand turn lane. And again, we tried to keep it as far west as we could to not be too close to the neighbors behind us there. So that's where the location comes about that you see there today. In terms of people trying to make the dive to swing to the left, I've been out there in the afternoon and they physically can't do it because of the traffic. There is a lot of traffic out there. And as Mr. Clark noted, we put it in as safe a place as we can. There's always the one-off that may try to do something that's just not safe, but there's no way to physically prevent that from happening. In terms of the location of the driveway on 45th, we did move that as far north as we physically could get it without hitting the bridge in the creek. We worked with staff to accommodate the road expansion plans that the county has for 45th, so we've actually done some accommodating there with pulling curbs back, pulling utilities back, getting it all basically out of the way so that when the county comes through, it's all ready for you guys to come in and do the work without having to do a bunch of demolition work. We've also put in, and I'll let Mike talk to the traffic counts, but we're also allowing room for a little turn lane on 45th, a little northbound turn lane for people, kind of a dive lane for people to get out of the flow of traffic so as not to try to back people up into the intersection there where 45th hits 70. Not a warranted one by counts in terms of the number of traffic and trips, but warranted in just kind of a common sense standpoint of let's get people out as quick as we can of the flow of traffic so we're not backing anybody up. To the question of the median, I can confirm the median will be extended, as Mr. Clark also alluded to, when the 45th improvements come through. I don't know exactly time-wise when that's going to be. I don't think it's going to be too long after Aldi comes through. Aldi's going to take around 9 to 10 months to construct and open, and I think you guys are going to be right in there behind us with your construction if everything goes the way the staff is thinking it's going to go. But I don't want to put words in your mouth, so tell me if I'm wrong on that. In terms of environmental, there are a number of concerns on this site that we had to overcome. Obviously, with Gap Creek right there behind us, there's floodways, there's floodplains, there's wetlands that we've held buffers and gotten out of. There are a lot of large trees along the creek that we're doing everything we can to keep. We're keeping the majority of those, which is actually a function of the buffers. We can't get into the wetlands anyway. So by the time you put the buffers and the conservation areas on them, we're out of those. And we think they actually make a really nice site amenity right there because those are some big trees, really pretty trees. So we've done what we can to hold those. We've actually put some retaining walls in on that northern side of the development where you see the driveway coming in from 45th and coming into the parking lot. Rather than push fill slopes out that way, which would have gotten into the trees, and also into the floodplain, we've put retaining wall along that side, and that way we can minimize our footprint in those areas. So we've been able to stay out of the floodway. We wouldn't want to touch that anyway because that's where you get into Lomar and everything else with the U.S. on wetlands. We stayed out of the wetlands. We do have a little bit of fill that's going into the 100-year floodplain. We've done floodplain compensation on site as required by Manatee County, cup for cup. So any dirt you put in, you also have to excavate back out the equivalent amount of dirt. And we've done that so we don't have any negative impacts to the floodplain. Stormwater design, you see the pond on there. We always color them blue. That's a little bit of a misnomer. It's not a wet pond. It's not a lake. It's a dry pond. So it will perk down after each rainfall, which provides the treatment that we need for the first 1 inch of treatment to make sure our water is clean before it gets released. And we also attenuate the 25-year storm. We worked with staff on coming up with that design. And this pond actually can hold the 100-year storm. It doesn't attenuate that, but it does hold it so that it's not flooding immediately off the site. So a lot of information I just threw at you. We're here to answer any questions you may have, so we'll let you guys pepper us with whatever questions you got.
Thank you. On the entrance on the west side of the site, there's something labeled as a 24.2. That's where the dive lane, as you described it, will be constructed in the future. That's not proposed.
Your eyes are far better than mine. I can't see it on the screen.
There's a gray area between the
Okay.
site and there's a diagonal line that is at the location.
That's where the dive lane would go. I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually part of what we did with staff, in that we're donating the right-of-way that the county's going to need to make those improvements. It just, timing-wise, it worked out really well because the county's far enough along in the design that they know what they need. Aldi was just coming in with their design, and it just made sense rather than us try to ramrod through something and the county come back and have to pick up right-of-way later and it doesn't tie together. We were able to mesh it all. That gray area is kind of light gray, the 24.2 I think you noted. That's actually showing you the dimension, the width of the right-of-way that we're dedicating. And the reason you see that it has that little jog in it is that's to accommodate that future turn lane right there.
Right, so that'll be in the future once the 45th
Yes, sir.
is expanded. Okay, thank you very much. Are there any additional questions for the applicant?
I don't have any.
Nothing. Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we've already had the staff presentation. Are there any public comments? Is there anybody in the public who wishes to come forward and speak either for or against this item? Anybody in the public? Seeing none?
Gentleman back there.
Oh, yes, sir. If you
Not sworn.
okay.
I would like to just, do I need to be sworn?
Yes, sir. You do.
swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which you're about to present to this board will be truthful and accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Please state your name.
My name's Richard Hudson. I have the barber shop and the properties just to the east, and we're all for this. We're excited about it.
Okay.
Everything looks good to me. I would like a copy of the site plan, if anybody's got an extra.
Okay.
This one right here? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the comments. Let's see, where are we in the process? Are there any additional comments or questions for staff? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Rhodes.
I'll make a motion. Based on the staff report, evidence presented, comments made at the public hearing, and finding a request to be consistent with the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan and the Manatee County Land Development Code as conditioned therein, I move to recommend adoption of the Manatee County Zoning Ordinance, PDC 14-27, para Z, para P, approval of the preliminary site plan with stipulations A1, A5, B1, C1, D1 through D4, granting special approval for a project, 1, partially within the coastal high hazard area, CHHA, per Manatee County Comprehensive Plan, number 2, adjacent to a perennial stream, adoption of the findings for specific approval, and granting specific approval to alternatives to sections 714.8.7 tree replacement size, 715.3.1.d minimum required landscaping vehicular use area, and 715.3.2 roadway buffer options of the Land Development Code as recommended by the staff.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Or opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. That's the agenda for today, but we had some input from some of the commissioners that requested some maybe instructional information from staff. Mr. Horgan, you had some questions related to process?
Yes, well, two. One, that we have some sort of time when we can formally ask questions of staff about general items that may or that are not on today's agenda. Things that may be happening in the future, or things that perhaps we have observed happening in the past, and try and understand exactly what was happening.
Oh, okay. I would suggest that you can contact staff at any time if it's an item not related to something that we're going to be hearing. But in addition, in the past, we've had a work session prior to the formal hearings. Is it the pleasure of the commission that maybe we engage in those work sessions again? Is that
I think it'd be helpful.
helpful? Okay.
I mean, if we had if we just had an agenda slot for it, even though that wasn't, you know.
Yeah. Because we may not know if we've got a question or a concern.
Okay.
You know, until it's the time of, or the month of the meeting.
Now, would you like that at the beginning, end?
I would suggest that the beginning would be more appropriate. The end time varies greatly depending on the items on the agenda. So maybe if we schedule maybe a half hour prior to the meeting for the next meeting, just at that time we could ask any questions that there may be. In addition, I know as we spoke earlier, the Land Development Code is being revised, and maybe a little bit of information regarding the revisions to the Land Development Code, the process it's going to go through, and how the Planning Commission will be involved in that.
Okay, so we'll start at 8:30 and have a presentation on that particular item.
Okay, thank
We
you
can
very
do
much.
that, not a problem.
Thank you very much. Okay, are there any other
Yeah, just
items for
Just
discussion?
another thing, I didn't want to bring it up today because my issue was addressed related to my question, but I'm just throwing this out. I think it would have been nice, just as a general that Ms. Leader, when we pulled item number 6, before we got specifically into my question, Clark, which was fine, if she could have given some overall presentation related to the project, if this is on television or someone in the audience is listening and we go immediately to a concern on traffic, the overall project and what it is and what was maybe our issue wasn't discussed or even presented to somebody who wasn't already familiar with it. So I think maybe in the future, just a quick
No,
overview of that would be nice.
I absolutely agree with you, and we will make sure that we do give a brief overview.
Okay.
In these type of instances, rather than a complete, that's.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be complete unless
Yeah.
somebody has questions on that.
Staff's prepared to give you a complete, and it's kind of hard to,
Truncated.
yes, but you're absolutely right, because there was no information provided to the public as to,
What was the issue or why was this even
until the
brought up?
applicant came up and actually put the site plan out, which does help, but we will make sure we do that. That's not a problem at all, and I agree with you.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. That's Chair. I'll try to remind staff if that occurs. I think when items come off of consent, there's usually a question, so I think the more information during that process will help all those involved, even as it moves forward to the BOCC, so.
Yes,
thank
correct.
And in the past, we've
Chairman?
asked,
I'm sorry.
You have the procedures, it's listed on there as number 2 for
Right.
staff to give a brief introduction.
Right. Yes.
in the past, we've sort of been asked if we wanted to take something off the consent agenda. Was it something that could be, are there brief questions about a specific item, or are we talking about a full presentation? That's kind of
Right.
helpful to everybody.
Ms. Schenk, if something's removed from consent, it falls into the regular agenda, it then is a typical presentation that should be the appropriate.
Well, I think you just have to tell staff that through Mr. Meyer, so he can inform his staff that you want a presentation. When it was pulled, it seemed like it was just pulled for those certain questions.
Right.
So staff was responding to those questions. And
Right.
some of the questions the applicant was more appropriate to respond to, but
Yeah.
anyone interrupt in the middle of the thing,
Right. Also, in the past, there have been things that were left on consent but discussed amongst the commissioners and staff, or even the applicant. Is that an appropriate process when there are questions, or should the item be pulled from consent?
Well, sometimes it's difficult to know ahead of time. Sometimes just one person signs up to speak, but then the citizen comment starts the issues. I think it's better legally to have a complete record and have it pulled from consent and dealt with later, and just tick off the routine items first.
Okay. I'll take the advice of the county attorney's office and play it by ear, but I think as we go through this, we're establishing rights and restricting rights, so I think it's better to have more information than less, so we'll.
Totally agree.
So, okay. Are there any other items? Anything for the good of the order? Being said, meeting is adjourned.